Today we are tackling something that has kept heads in our industry scratching all year. Everyone says oil and gas production is up, up, up in 2023, yet anyone can plainly see that rig counts are down. So what gives? Robert Rapier, a senior contributor at Forbes, helps us explain. In his article titled, "Why are oil and gas production rising when rig counts are falling?" That's the question. He starts out saying, "This week I pointed out in a TikTok video that the US is poised to set a new oil production record. In response, someone took exception to my claim by stating that he works in the industry and drilling rigs are stacking up. This is true. So what gives?" He says it's correct that the rig count has fallen. According to data from Baker Hughes, the number of rigs drilling for oil and gas has fallen by about 20% over 2023. This decline reversed a steady increase that began after the rig count bottomed out below 300 in the early stages of COVID in 2020. The rig count recovered back to nearly 800 rigs by the end of 22, but has now declined back down to 620. So nevertheless, the US oil and gas natural production are both poised to set new annual production records after monthly production has risen steadily all year. So how can this be if rig counts are falling? Well, I think us in the industry are going to have to start using something other than just rig counts to measure industry activity. And he explains why. Keep in mind, the rig count is a measure of rigs that are currently drilling, with a D, drilling for oil and gas. In many cases, the wells are already drilled, but they haven't been completed. These are called drilled but uncompleted wells, DUCs. Sorry, that inventory is tracked by the Energy Information Administration. And here's a link to that. I'll put a link in the description. So what we can see is that since last December in 2022, the inventory of drilled but uncompleted has declined from 5,300 to about 4,500. So that reflects about 800 wells that started producing oil and gas, but that would not have been impacted by the falling rig count this year, because they were already drilled. In addition, there are continuous technology improvements that have enabled a higher recovery of oil and gas per well. The biggest example of that has been seen in the natural gas rig count. So back in 2007, there were around 1,500 rigs drilling for natural gas. In 2009, that fell below 1,000. In 2012, it fell below 500. And it fell below 100 in 2016. Today it stands about 120. Yet, during that time, US natural gas production actually increased by 80%. So a similar story for oil. In 2014, there were 1,600 rigs drilling for oil. Today, there are 620. But oil and gas production is up 50% higher than it was in 14. So thus using rig counts as a proxy for natural gas or oil production would have grossly misled you. So don't confuse drilling with production. So thank you, Robert Rapier, for pointing that out, because that had left a lot of us scratching our heads as to why production's up, but we see and we feel less activity. And of course, you can read the rig count. So some things to keep in mind for that. If you're invested in the things, either assets or people, and this goes for investment or if this is just your job, and people needed for drilling, that may stay down because obviously there's a lot of push to do less and less oil recovery anyway. Rig counts is something that the public can look at and see, and they judge our activity by those rig counts. So there's pressure to have less and less of that. And if we can produce more and more just because we're getting better in the industry technologically at recovery, that means investments in what it takes to drill are going to be more and more risky because there's going to be more and more competition for those fewer and fewer rigs. If you're invested on the other end on recovery, this may be a good thing because we're just doing more and more and more of it. If you're on the cutting edge of that technology that's helping us do more and more, that's a good thing. If you are a worker um, and you work on drilling rigs, this could be a problem because there could be fewer and fewer rigs. So just think about that. I don't have anything to say what to do yet on that. We're invested on both ends, so we're feeling it tight in one end and loosening up on others. But let me know, where are you feeling the pain? Does this make sense to you? Does this help you figure out why everyone's saying we're producing more and yet in some ways there's less activity? Please let me know what you think in the comments. If you liked it, of course, like, share, and subscribe so that you can keep getting energy science, industry, and regulatory news for your investments and for your work. And of course, remember, science in our hands, but also at our feet, knowledge in our heads, and God at the helm. The future is ours to build.